Time was that the road was a simpler, quieter place. One had only to obey the rules to survive. Today, with the increased complexity in the technology of our automobiles, the increased number of drivers and cars on American highways, and the fast-paced lifestyle that produces more stressed-out drivers, the simple drive to work is not so simple anymore. Today, the highway has become the proverbial rat race, and a dangerous one at that. On today's roads, good driving requires special skills, alertness, and a defensive spirit. The unwary driver who too carelessly and comfortably approaches his driving subjects both himself and others to possible property damage and bodily injury. The bottom line is simple. Today's drivers must drive defensively. Sometimes, as drivers, we experience a false sense of security, the feeling that accidents happen to others. If we obey the law, our mindset says we're safe. But our odds are not so remote. In 1989, for example, 22 million Americans were involved in auto accidents. That's 1 in every 7. With risks like that, we can ill afford to rely on the next driver to accept his responsibility on the road. Driving defensively means assuming others may break laws or demonstrate poor driving judgment. If they don't, good. If they do present a potential accident, we're better prepared for it. After all, defensive drivers are reluctant to trust other drivers who always do. Above all things, the defensive driver realizes the danger of speed. Observing posted speeds is one of the best defenses against accidents. For example, in Europe, where speed limits range from 70 in England to 81 in France, 87 in Italy, and completely unlimited in Germany on the Autobahn, the death rate per 100 million miles driven is higher than that in either the U.S. or Canada, where the speed limits are significantly lower. And even in New Mexico, when the 65-mile-per-hour speed limit was restored, fatalities doubled, even on good or little-traveled roads. Even so, the defensive driver is quick to realize the importance of keeping with traffic flow. When most cars move at a faster rate than he wishes to travel, he stays in the far right lane, even though others are exceeding the speed limit. Driving in the fast lane at a speed slower than the flow is not a good defensive move, and slowing down significantly on a crowded highway, say to get rid of a pesky tailgater, is a poor decision. Slowing down to the posted speed when the flow is much faster can actually create a greater hazard than speeding. However, speed is not the biggest factor to contend with in city driving. Improper driving is more likely to contribute to accidents than speed. Inasmuch as average speed in the U.S. has decreased since 1970, we have to conclude that other factors, such as improper driving, are significant contributors to automobile accidents, particularly in urban areas. In fact, in 1990, improper driving, as opposed to speed, was more likely to account for accidents in urban areas than in rural areas. Stop signs and traffic lights offer key trouble spots for the driver, especially in city driving. Because things approach so quickly, the defensive driver aims high. That is, he takes in the larger picture of the road ahead of him. If he looks only 100 feet ahead, he sees clearly a path about 5 feet wide. If he looks ahead 1,000 feet, his path of clear vision is about 52 feet, a big difference in heavy traffic. Our trash bags hold valuable resources, metal, glass, paper, wood, and plastics that can be reprocessed and used again. In fact, Some experts say as much as 80% of our garbage could be used to manufacture new and useful products. Let's go inside, Hal, and see how you and your family can turn trash into cash. The best way to start recycling is at the source. That is, clean and separate all recyclables as you collect them. Keep in mind that local recycling programs vary, so check with your city for more specific information about procedures. Let's start with those glass jars. They can be melted down to produce new containers, saving 30% of the energy required to produce glass from raw materials. Wash the jars to remove food and beverage residue. Then place them in a separate container. Sort glass by colors, green, brown, and clear. Labels can stay on, but keep lids and caps out. How about that soda can, Hal? Aluminum cans are the most valuable recyclable. In fact, recycling one can saves enough energy to run a TV for 3 hours. Some recycling centers accept 10 cans. Wash them, then separate them from aluminum cans. If you're unsure if a can is aluminum, test it with a magnet. A magnet will stick to steel. Look at all those newspapers, Hal. That's more trash going to waste. 1 ton of recycled paper saves 17 trees and 3 cubic yards of landfill space. When you save papers, be sure to remove ad slicks and magazine inserts. We throw out 85% of the office paper we use. Recyclable stationery, memos, copy paper, typing paper, and computer paper. Remove plastic windows from envelopes and make sure paper is free of contaminants like glues, food particles, or large metal clips or fasteners. Yes, Al, you found all kinds of treasure in your trash, but don't stop now. There may be even more. Some recycling centers will take magazines, aluminum foil and scrap, corrugated cardboard, paper bags, phone books, wood, and plastic containers. Be sure to call the center first to check. Even non-recyclable products may have a use somewhere. You may find a scrap dealer who will take windows, light bulbs, plate glass, ceramics, glass cookware, plastic toys, or building materials. And one more thing. Kitchen and yard waste make up 1/4 of our waste stream. Make a compost pile to recycle grass clippings, leaves, coffee grounds, and apple cores. Composting can turn these wastes into a nutrient-rich soil supplement for the yard or garden and save on landfill space. If we're not careful, we're going to turn our planet into a giant garbage dump, but each of us can make a difference. This year, every American will produce 4 pounds of trash every day. That's 28 pounds a week, almost 1,500 pounds a year. Where will it all go? Well, that's up to you. This is Claude Akins reminding you that safety is your job too.
John worked in industry for 15 years and was familiar with all types of equipment and safety procedures. But in this case, John was overconfident and thought he could get the job done quickly by moving the movable guard out of the way. When he flipped the guard out of the way and pushed the piece of wood, his shirt cuff became lodged in the cutter head. As John struggled to break free from the machine, his forearm was sliced. John was seriously injured because he not only removed the guard, but he also left his shirt cuff hanging loosely. Accidents happen in all types of environments with all types of equipment. You do not have to give up stylish clothing when you go to work. You only have to dress safe. Keep loose clothing tucked, buttoned, and fitted properly. Remove jewelry that could become lodged or caught in equipment. Common office equipment can be as dangerous as shop equipment if safety precautions are ignored. Each year, over 40,000 office workers are injured on the job. More than 200 of these injuries result in death. Anyone can shred a document. It's a simple, routine procedure that is performed daily in most office settings. Yet David, an upper management employee, was severely injured performing this task. David forgot about his tie for one moment, long enough to sustain a painful neck injury, which will require time lost from work and some therapy.
So, Eric, just turn off. Just go get some scissors. My neck is killing me.
David was lucky that he didn't break his neck.
I just cut it off.
This accident could have been avoided. Make sure ties are fastened or tucked in before using equipment. You know your job. You're the best. Make sure long hair is either tied back or covered with a hat when working with any type of equipment or machinery. How many times have you printed a document? 100 times? Perhaps thousands of times. I'll bet you never thought you could sustain an injury by simply printing a piece of paper. Beth never thought so either. Jewelry can be dangerous around common office. Beth sustained an injury that could have been avoided. This could be you. Remember to dress safe. Wear protective clothing when required. Make sure your clothing is secured properly. Check cuffs, buttons, zippers, and ties. Keep long hair tied back or covered with a cap when working with any type of equipment or machinery. Remove jewelry before operating equipment. Remember, if you were in a truly hazardous area, you would dress to protect yourself. But wherever you work, you should always dress safe. These accidents you have just seen are all based on actual incidents. This is James Drury reminding you to saddle up for safety.
Saving lives. Now that gets the adrenaline pumping. Fuel it with a strong dose of common sense. Many emergencies, besides fire, cause quick evacuations. Two examples are poisonous gas and flooding. Suddenly, bam, it happens. Know your building's emergency action plan. Exits shouldn't be a hide-and-seek game, so pitch in to help see that code compliance doesn't just fall on the building owner. Speak up if a required exit door has no sign. And keep in mind that exit signs should be lighted or at least clearly visible. Lighted exit signs are very important. That's why they're usually required in most egress places. Doors, your final passport to safety. Do your exit doors look like any other door? Nothing special? Again, speak up. It may save lives. Which way should exit doors open? If used by more than 50 persons or for high hazard occupancy, all exit doors must swing with exit travel. Even if an exit door works easily from the outside, it should always open from the inside without a key or working up a sweat. Since some doors are required to be self-closing or automatic, it's doubly important to keep the area clear. Hard worker, isn't he? Unfortunately, this eager beaver's building a dam. He's not stacking boxes in the stockroom. He's blocking an exit door, your lifeline to safety. Always keep all exits clear, even when you're thinking, I'll just sit this here for a minute. And let's not forget about the hallway. Still, blocking exits may not always pop to mind. You're at a meeting. Then, between gulps of coffee, evacuate. Well, what will you do if the exits are blocked? Remember, obstructions aren't limited to boxes, chairs, and equipment. Overcrowding's deadly, too. Yes, egress and exit codes do land on the building owner, but you have a responsibility, too, a responsibility to yourself. The key? Make sure that you know how and where to exit on a moment's notice, and that nothing will hinder a safe escape. When you're away from the familiar workplace, say at a hotel, find emergency exit locations when you check in. If you're a new employee, don't wait for your coworkers to tell you about safe egress and exit. This new employee is about to get a helping hand in the right direction. It can happen anytime and any place. This is Claude Akins reminding you that safety is your job too.
Your hands are complex and wonderfully designed machines. Together with your wrists, they help you do a remarkable variety of tasks, from playing the piano to cooking dinner or hammering a nail. Your hands respond daily to various commands that ask for feats of strength and dexterity. To put it simply, your hands are literally extensions of your brain. More of your brain is reserved for controlling hand movements than for controlling any other part of your body. Clearly, your hands and wrists are important to every aspect of your life. You use your hands all day, every day, both at home and at work. Yet, in doing all of these things that they do every day, your hands and wrists are prone to accidents and injury. This program is designed to show you what you can do to prevent injury and what to do just in case an accident occurs. Now, before we go any further, it's important to take a quick look at the structure of your hand and wrist. This will help you to understand the types of injuries we'll discuss later. Let's begin with the bones. Bones form the structural support and strength in your hand and wrist. Altogether, there are 27 different bones in your hand and wrist. In comparison, there are only 3 bones in your arm. The bones are surrounded and tied together by muscles, ligaments, and tendons. Ligaments are strong, fibrous bands of tissue that serve to stabilize joints and prevent damage by limiting side movements of joints. Tendons permit flexibility. When a muscle contracts, the tendons lift or curl the fingers. All of these, working together, enable your hand to perform some remarkable things, including grasping, and the ability to pick up small objects with your thumb and index finger. Now, let's take a look at the different kinds of hand and wrist injuries. Remember the information we've just discussed about bones, ligaments, and tendons. Wrist fractures. This injury is most often caused by trying to break a fall with an outstretched hand. Sometimes the ends of the forearm bones can be broken too. Hand and finger fractures. Generally, this is caused by trapping or twisting the fingers suddenly. Fingers caught in a car door, for example. Accidentally hitting the fingers, such as with a hammer, can cause a finger fracture. Hand sprains. These occur when the ligaments in the hand or wrist are stretched too far and tear. Thumb sprains, for example, are a common sports injury. Fingertip injuries. Fingertips are subject to many different types of injuries. The bones can be fractured, the fleshy part of the finger may be torn, or the fingernail may be damaged. Lacerations. Lacerations, or cuts, can be minor, that is, only affecting the layers of skin, or major, serious, deep cuts which sever nerves, muscles, or tendons. Lacerations can occur if you're not careful while handling sharp cutting tools, such as knives or saws. Nerve compression. This injury results from a swelling of tissues that surround a nerve. As a result, there's a loss of feeling, or sometimes a tingling. Repetitive movements are the culprit here, as they tend to create the swelling of tissues. Caring for hand and wrist injuries depends upon the type of injury. A hand surgeon or emergency physician can treat the problem. Emergencies, such as lacerations, will be cleaned and sutured, while x-rays will be taken first for fractures to properly diagnose the problem. Your doctor may ask you questions about how the accident or injury happened. If the injury is believed to be a sprain or fracture, the fingers, hand, or forearm will be examined and gently moved to determine the limits of movement. This helps to diagnose the injury correctly. Fractures of the fingers, wrist, or forearm are treated by being repositioned or set to their former position before the broken bone is immobilized with a cast or splint. Pins may be used if the fracture is in an unstable area. A cast is generally used here, and the cast will probably be removed in 6 to 8 weeks. Sprains are treated in a different manner. Usually, anti-inflammatory medication is prescribed to reduce swelling, and the area is immobilized with a splint or cast until the ligament heals properly. Other specific hand and wrist injuries require very specific treatments. For example, hitting your fingernail with a hard, direct blow, such as from a hammer, can cause bleeding beneath the fingernail. This condition is called black nail. Sometimes this will disappear as the nail grows out, but if pain or pressure continue, your doctor will relieve this by drilling a hole in the nail to drain off the blood. A crushing blow to a fingertip, such as a finger being caught in a moving machine, can fracture the last bone of the finger and drive the fingernail upwards. This avulsion of the nail is treated with a thorough cleansing, and fragments of the bone are removed. Damaged portions of the nail are removed as well. A tissue loss, as from a pinching or tearing injury, is usually repaired with either suturing or surgery. Skin will be sutured back together, or in very complex injuries, surgery will carefully repair tendons and ligaments. Sometimes skin grafting will be necessary to restore function and appearance. A splint may be used to protect the finger as it heals. Lacerations or cuts are treated according to their depth. Minor injuries, like those from a sharp knife, are usually fairly shallow because the force of the cutting instrument is not very great. This type of cut is cleaned and can be closed with either a butterfly bandage or a few stitches. Major lacerations usually cut skin, tendons, and nerves. This type of deep cut usually occurs from an accident involving machinery or power tools. Surgery is necessary to repair damaged tissues, and the skin is stitched closed. Splints are used to immobilize all major lacerations while they heal. Physical therapy may be necessary to restore full use of the tendons and help loosen scar tissue. Nerve compression. Now, this is often called carpal tunnel syndrome. Pain and numbness of the hand and fingers is generally caused by swollen tissues pressing on the median nerve, which runs through the carpal tunnel in the wrist. This injury is a bit different than the previous ones, as it's caused by repeated flexing of the hand and very repetitive motions. It's an acquired injury, not the result of a sudden accident. Treatment involves medications to relieve pain and swelling, followed by splinting to keep the wrist straight. Severe cases are treated with surgery where the carpal ligament is cut to relieve the pressure on the nerve. And there are other proven treatments besides surgery to correct carpal tunnel syndrome. Because you use your hands all day, every day, there's always the chance that you may injure them. However, you can decrease the chance of injury even further by working safely and carefully, both at work and at home. While at work, be extra careful around machinery and power tools. Use caution while handling knives or other sharp objects. You can prevent a hazardous fall by watching where you're walking and avoiding tripping hazards. Watch out for potential hazards. Don't take chances around broken glass or sharp pieces of metal. Think about keeping your hands and wrists safe, on the job and at home. Just think about all the wonderful things your hands and wrists do for you every day. Isn't it time you took a little time to care for them? Thank you.
Imagine thousands of pounds of force concentrated into a nozzle less than 1/8 of an inch in diameter. That's hydroblasting. With proper application and enough pressure, blasting guns can cut through virtually anything, including steel, wood, and standard rubber work boots. If not properly used, the hydroblasting gun can be a lethal weapon. When you're hydroblasting, you must take precautions for yourself, the surrounding area, and anyone else who may be affected by the blasting. Any injury that breaks the skin with high-pressure water must be treated very seriously. Because of the impurities of the water, many doctors insist that the wound be allowed to drain for several days, often in the hospital. Cleaning or blasting with high-pressure water has become increasingly popular in recent years, but many people are not aware of the hazards. Before you begin, use caution signs and barricade tape to barricade the entire area. Block off any areas that will be subject to danger of injury by the cutting action of the spray. Brief others in the area of the dangers of hydroblasting and prevent anyone from coming near the jet stream. Everyone, including the operator, should stay clear of the spray because it may be contaminated. Make sure the area operator has given you the proper permits before you start. Take a good look around the area. Know every kind of emergency that can occur and know how to evacuate if you need to. Ask for a material safety data sheet to find out what chemicals, if any, you're working with. Also, be sure to plan for where the runoff will go. If you're the one doing the blasting, or even close to it, you'll need to wear protective equipment. Along with a rain suit, hard hat, and safety glasses with side shields, you should wear hearing protection and a full face shield and goggles. You also need PVC gloves and rubber boots, plus metatarsal protection. As with some operations, there may be times when fresh air breathing equipment is required. In these cases, the plant operators should be consulted and arrangements should be made for everyone in the area to wear the breathing equipment recommended by those operators. Check all equipment prior to beginning work. To prevent foot injury, a suggested length of the barrel is long enough to prevent the operator from cutting his own feet. Several people have killed themselves as a result of using too short a barrel. Do all hookups with the engine turned off. See that all fittings are secure. Keep them clean and use Teflon tape at the joints. Check all hoses for erosion. If you see any areas where the braided metal inside is wearing out, use a different hose. Do not attempt to repair it yourself. Have it done by the manufacturer. Check around the area and move anything that could become a flying missile if hit by the blast. After hooking up everything but the nozzle, flush the system by closing the dump valve. This will wash any large impurities out of the line. Shut down the system, then install the nozzle. Before blasting, pressure check the system with the nozzle on. You can check it up to the maximum working pressure of the weakest element of the system. If there are any leaks in the system, turn off the engine, repair or tighten them, and check again. Whenever you're hydroblasting, you must have either a hand or foot-operated dump valve in the system. The dump valve diverts water from the nozzle to the waste outlet, thereby reducing the pressure. It's your most important safety device. If two or more people are working together, the one closest to the nozzle is the one who should operate the primary dump valve. When doing tube lancing, use the dump valve to divert the water when you're going from one tube to another. Never do hydroblasting from a ladder. Anytime your blasting job requires you to be 4 feet or more above ground level, you must work from a scaffold that meets OSHA guidelines. Remember, a hydroblasting gun can be a tremendous tool or a dangerous weapon. It all depends on the care you take before you pull the trigger. This is Claude Akins reminding you that safety is your job too. Wrong. Wrong. Wrong again. Still wrong. Safety and health problems like these four examples are a commonplace occurrence in the workplace. To minimize chemically induced or chemically related illness and injury, OSHA has issued a standard for hazardous communication called in government jargon HAZCOM. This program is designed to ensure that all chemicals produced, imported, or used in United States workplaces are properly evaluated and understood, and that all information regarding any hazards to health or safety be clearly transmitted to all affected employees. Now, how about another look at those four bad examples? Always add acid to water, never the reverse. Adding water to the acid could cause an explosion and injury. Always wear a respirator and gloves while spraying paint. Paint fumes and skin irritation from solvents or paint pigments can be serious health hazards. Even in an ideal environment and wearing a white lab coat, protect your eyes. Wear safety goggles or glasses. A chemical splashed into an eye can cause permanent damage, blindness, in an instant. Even on this job, be careful. Wear rubber gloves. Chlorine reacts with moisture to produce acid, and acid irritates the skin. Wear gloves. These safety mishaps can easily be avoided. Simply ensure all workers are informed of all hazards to health and safety and that they always follow proper protective measures. That's why the HAZCOM standard requires employers to develop and maintain a written hazardous communication or HAZCOM program, including provision for container labeling, material safety data sheets, and a training program for all employees. This plan must contain a list of all hazardous chemicals in each work area and describe how workers are made aware of all hazards. That means routine hazards and the not-so-routine hazards. If there are multiple employers on a job site, like on a construction project, then the rule requires all employers make available all relevant information regarding all hazards and protective measures and precautions. The hazard assessment is critical to the program. All hazardous compounds and their locations must be identified in the plan. During this assessment, ask questions, lots of questions. Don't overlook anything or anybody during hazard assessment. Are there odors from solvents or propellant gases? How about paint pigments? Any coughing or breathing troubles? Then respirators and masks or hoods will be required. Do eyes burn or do throats and noses become irritated? Is there an unusual taste in the mouth? Are hazardous operations performed during odd hours when supervisors might not be around? How about maintenance workers? What special tasks do they perform? And how about procedures for responding to emergencies like chemical spills, leaks, or explosions or fires? How about safety aspects of the cleanup process? What are the required precautions? And once you've answered these questions and developed a complete hazardous substance inventory, keep it updated as job requirements and chemical inventories change, and make sure the HAZCOM file is available to everybody. HAZCOM. Evaluation and communication can go a long way in preventing illness or injury, and the responsibility goes both ways. The employer must provide adequate hazard information, and the employee must follow the required safety procedures. Awareness, understanding, compliance, and a safe shop. This is Claude Akins reminding you that safety is your job, too. The fire extinguisher, first line of defense against one of the workplace's most common enemies. But like most tools, the fire extinguisher can be a work hazard. Let's get to know our tools. No matter who or where or when, the emotional response to a call of fire is most often a sudden surge of panic. The trained response is one that immediately overcomes the initial fear and prompts positive action, and quick positive action requires confidence in the equipment at hand. This is a dry chemical-filled, hand-operated extinguisher. This type of extinguisher is approved for all three classes of fires that are likely to break out in home, office, or shop. Class A, wood, paper, cloth, most plastics, to knock down the flames until water can be provided. Class B, flammable or combustible liquids like gasoline or solvent. Or Class C, electrical fires like in switch boxes or electric motors or fixtures. Dry powder doesn't conduct electricity. The dry powder starves the oxygen from the atmosphere, and in the absence of oxygen, the fire dies. Carbon dioxide extinguishers are commonly found where flammable liquids or electrical equipment may be involved in a fire. Carbon dioxide isn't recommended for Class A or trash, paper, or wood fires. And another caution, in a closed environment or an area that isn't well ventilated, the lack of oxygen can cause the user to be overcome, or almost as bad, the dense cloud of fog can cause disorientation. And another thing, Never touch or attempt to handle the discharge horn when using the CO2 extinguisher. The carbon dioxide cloud is almost like dry ice, and it can make the horn so cold it can burn or blister.
Another type of fire extinguishing agent still very much in place, even though it is no longer manufactured, is halon gas. Halon gas and certain other chemicals used as fire extinguishing agents were identified as contributing to the depletion of the ozone layer. A number of substitutes are available and under development to replace the extinguishing agents no longer being manufactured.
There are two basic types of dry chemical fire extinguishers, both approved for Class B and C fires. A dry powder extinguisher containing ammonium phosphate can also be used on small Class A fires. Pressurized gas is used to force the dry powder from the storage canister. Some of these units have an external cartridge for the propellant gas and can be quickly recharged in the field. Others rely on gas stored in the main canister, not so easily recharged. In fact, many smaller dry powder units, like those installed in vehicles, are designed for one-time use only, and with small units that may not be more than a few seconds. All the more reason to know how to use the tool. And another thing, once you've put out the fire with the dry powder unit, don't waste any time cleaning up the mess. Multipurpose dry powders like ammonium phosphate or potassium chloride put out the fire all right, but then they start to corrode any metal surfaces, and the longer you wait to start cleanup, the harder the job is going to be. The most common firefighting agent is still water, especially for Class A fires where wood or paper or cloth is involved. The pump tank extinguisher filled with plain old H2O or water-based combined agents is simple and inexpensive, but it has a lot of drawbacks. The user has to keep pumping, and it's harder to fight many fires from a static position.
Well, it sure looks like a lot of work. Yeah.
But still, for many applications, water is the cheapest, quickest, and handiest weapon against fire. And whatever type of extinguisher you work with, don't fight the flames. Fight the base of the fire, the bottom of the flames. That's the fire, and that's where the water or gas or the chemical must be directed. And a couple of additional warnings while we're at it. Avoid using any sort of inverting type extinguishers, the old-fashioned type that has to be turned upside down to operate. None of this type extinguisher have been manufactured in the U.S. since 1969, and for good reasons. There have been major problems with pressure failures, either not enough pressure to expel the firefighting agent, or in some cases, too much pressure, and an explosion that seriously injured or killed. If you know where a unit like this is located, get it replaced. And whatever types of extinguishers you have access to, be sure they are properly installed, thoroughly tested, on a regular schedule, and well maintained. Any sort of container under pressure can be dangerous. If there are any dents or dings, or if there's even a spot of rust on the unit, don't sand it down and paint it over. Get the unit thoroughly pressure tested before recharging and remounting, and recharge after every use. No exceptions. And just as important, know where the fire extinguishers are located, both the primary unit for your workstation and the closest backup unit. Never start fighting even a small fire with the expectation that one or two fire extinguishers will do the job. Put the primary unit into use and immediately send for additional help, the closest backup unit and the plant or community firefighting team. Oh yes, never remount an extinguisher after use, even if you only fire one quick burst. After any use, recharge and retag immediately. It's mighty hard to overreact to fire. There's no such thing as being too cautious or too safe. This is Claude Akins reminding you that safety